Welcome, everybody, to Strife's Sanctum. My name is Citizen Strife, and today we're going to go back about a year ago when I started running YouTube videos again. Because I was on Twitch for a while, but decided, because of my internet connection and then what ended up being kind of a recurring neck issue, I decided to do YouTube LPs, and that's what I've been doing since then. I've been doing Twitch on a couple of days, and I've been doing consistent uploads, and then I added these podcasts to the equation. And one of the games that I started with, in fact, I believe it was the second game I did, is Breath of Fire 3. Now, Breath of Fire 3 was released in 1997 by Capcom, and I didn't really know anything about Breath of Fire. I might have played 2. I don't really know if I played 1 all that much. But Breath of Fire 3 has always kind of held this place in my heart. Because this was right around the time, well, obviously Final Fantasy VII came out. We had other RPGs coming out as well, but Final Fantasy was kind of the big name. But Breath of Fire was one of those ones that nobody really talked about a whole lot. But when they do, they speak of it fondly. And especially looking back now that we've been 20 years or so since an actual mainline installment. I'm not counting 6 because that was a mobile game. 3 and 4 specifically, 2 to a lesser extent. 1 is usually forgotten, but 3 and 4 are usually considered very high-standing RPGs. They're the great at a lot of things, but not spectacular at them. They're the working man's RPGs where you're getting a quality experience, but you're not being overloaded with the greatness that you would see from a Final Fantasy story, or say now a Persona story, or one of the better Tales games. But you're getting something that is very good, very complex battle systems that really do take turn-based battles to a different degree. And Breath of Fire 3 added some interesting features to their battle system, what I would consider the Master System, to be one of its crowning achievements. And then some of the mini games are really, really, really good, and some are really, really, really shit. But all of those elements are the B+ RPG, maybe even an A-, because I've played it 5 or 10 different times, and here and there I might get bored while playing it because I know something I don't like is coming up, but I always go back to it. I always love playing it again, and you can definitely hear it in my voice. I'm just really, this is like when I was playing Ys 8. When I was talking about Ys 8, I was thrilled. This ended up being one of my favorite games of all time, simply because it just does everything well. It doesn't do everything right, but it does everything well, and I will do my best. This is a spoilerific review, so again, I have done this on my YouTube channel, so go check out that playlist if you haven't. I think you would really enjoy Breath of Fire 3, but I'll do my best to go at it from an analytical perspective, and this will actually remind me of one of the videos that I did. One of the later videos towards the end of the game featured a segment known as the Desert of Death. Now, I'll go into that in more detail on its own, but I used that episode as a refresher for like a mini review. Before I started doing these podcasts, I would always try to find a place to do like a mini review or 5 or 10 minutes of a thing. This actually gave me an hour of good stuff to talk about, and that's how I'm able to remember, even a year later, what I talked about and what I was thinking as I was playing this game over again. And it's something that, while I don't like the Desert of Death, I like the attempt that they made. I just didn't like the execution of it. I think that's where those PlayStation RPGs, even Final Fantasy VII to an extent, so many mini games thrown at the wall and hit or miss whether they worked or not. It's a fun distraction, but when you have a battle system so good, when you have characters this good, when you have a story with a villain this good, and I use villains I use villain in questionable terms because what I really like about this game is the villain itself doesn't really feel very villainous. And that's why I wanted to do a spoiler review, is because I have to talk about the final boss and why she did what she did and why I find it to be one of the more fascinating things about this game. But we'll start with Ryu and work our way from there. So Ryu was born in a mine. And his whole thing was, I'm just a kid. I don't know what's going on. I know I'm a dragon. I don't understand this. And he's a silent protagonist, which makes it, you know my feelings on those. Anyway, he's befriended by Ray and Tipo. And their whole thing is they're orphans in a town known as McNeil. They live in the Cedar Woods, but they're not well regarded because of the situation that confronts them. So they're led to, take residence in the woods with right around a big old burly lumberjack who sort of protects them, but also sort of tells them not to do stupid shit, but they're teenagers, so they act as thieves and petty criminals and whatever, and they get themselves in trouble. They get themselves in trouble a little too much, so they try and work around that, and they follow Bunyan's advice. They go to there, and they do what they were supposed to do. They were supposed to take down a lion or a new age chimera, I believe, and then the world would prosper. Or at least the woods. And then that was a good idea. What wasn't was letting somebody tell him, hey, you should steal some stuff from a guy. Except that guy was friends with the mob. So, in the span of like 3 to 5 hours, these characters that we've just met pissed off the mob. And that inline leads into childhood. So, Ryu is the main character, and he is the person that we talk to all the time. This is his game. And what makes him special is that he is one of the brood. He is of the race of dragons. People know of them. People are scared of them, rightly. People are unsure what the hell to deal with it because people have tried to hurt them or kill them or whatever, and it's not been a good idea. But there's these legends about the brood that persist. The mobsters I talked about were Baleo and Sunder, these hired goons from a higher place known as Sin City. So they weren't technically the leaders of the mob, but they're as close to the leaders you can get, and they are hell-bent on either making money or getting rid of Ryu so that they can keep making money. So they capture him and think that's going to make them money. Only it doesn't work out that way, and they are introduced to Nina. Nina is... I'll go that when I go to the character segments. But suffice it to say, Nina sucks in this game. Ryu and Nina are the two characters that always show up. You might have, say, Dace in as well. But Nina in this game is terrible. She's an idiot. And she's not helped out by the battle system either. But some other characters get involved, and they keep dealing with Baleo and Sunder, and then the overarching brood plot gets thrown into the mix. So for the first half of the game, the idea is Ryu is being guided to this place known as Angel Tower. And when he gets there, he finds that somebody who is trying to guide him there was doing for the express purposes of killing him, because that's what his god commanded him to do. So that is how the big reveal starts happening. The big overarching plot. The childhood and the Baleo and Sunder arc was a big step up from fighting people in a forest and whatever. But when you take God into the mix, it starts to get a little bit more hectic. But then there ends up being a time skip. Ryu doesn't seem to understand his powers because he is the last of his kind, or at least one to be assumed. So then there's a time skip. An interesting little time skip. So he grows from this 10-year-old Link person to a big old teenager. So it's basically Ocarina of Time in that sense. he ends up working his way through a lot of different machinations and a lot of different people to learning about his powers and getting his powers, and that in lies his greatest strength is his brood powers, because it ties into the battle system. The idea with him and his comrades, including the one who attempted to murder him, and Ray, who he assumed was left for dead. All of these characters have their own reasons for going to where they need to go, but there are a lot of different things in their way, and they have to find God. And when they find God, it becomes confusing to them and very dramatic in a good way. And I think that's the strongest bit of it. So that's the general plot. And as I will describe the characters, then I will feed into the plot a little bit more to give the specific backgrounds to things. And I'll try to weave the battle system in where I can. I find that I've been doing kind of a very structured way of talking, and it's fine, but I think for this game I know enough about it that I don't have to act too structured. I've talked about the plot, and I will go into more detail with that, but what I want to do now is talk about the characters and how they interact with the battle system, because that's the best way to get all of this to work. And now Ryu, his major focus in the battle system, you get turn-based battles, you get some other unique skills. Ryu is a nice little support mage, but he's also a very good attacker. His stats are pretty much broken beyond belief. So he's a red mage. He can be whatever he wants to be. If you want him to be a support character, do that. You want him to be a damage dealer, you can do that. You want him to be a magic user, you could do that. And the key to it all is the gene system. You're able to select 1 to 3 specific genes. There are 18 throughout the game, and some range from elemental skills, fire, ice, lightning, holy, whatever, on to the very awkward ones. You have a magic-based one, you have a fighter-based one. The fighter-based one is really fucking powerful. Some of those skills are broken. But Ryu acts as a druid from D&D. So the idea with a druid in D&D is you get to transform into a beast or a human, whatever. I've transformed into like a brontosaurus or an eagle or a whale or whatever on the whims. The way a druid works is they have their own health bar in wild shape. So if you lose all your HP in the wild shape, you revert back to your normal druid character. That's how it works in Ryu's case. So he essentially gets a second health bar. It's pretty nice. And most of the time, there comes a drawback to that. His skills and his turns are tied to his AP gauge, his SP or MP gauge, what have you. And you use a lot of those skills using a lot of AP, but you also waste them per turn. So you have to micromanage. Do you use the best stuff, or do you just use him as a meat shield? So Ryu has a lot of versatility, and his character cannot go wrong. I think the only way he could possibly go wrong is if you try to have him do a little bit of everything, but you could probably still do that. Or you have him with a master who just nerfs his stat base to the nth degree. But Ryu can do anything, which feeds into his overarching persona as this unkillable dragon boy super god thing. People fear him because he's so goddamn good. He's Link. He's Adol. He's Surge from Chrono Cross. He can do everything, and it works, and it's just, he's unfair. You contrast that to Nina, who sucks really badly. She just does. She is a magic user through and through, but her defining feature outside of doing damage to enemy parties is a lot of stat debuffs. And I'll be honest, the stat debuffs in this game, as I would say it, they don't work. The stat debuffs in this game are just, they miss all the time. You're better off using her as a mob clearer. Her whole thing is intelligence and agility. So she's fast, but she is a glass cannon through and through. It's almost like Geno from Super Mario RPG, but worse, because Geno was all about damage, and there was a lot more simpler mechanics in Super Mario RPG, so you only really had to worry about magic or attack and defense. In this game, it's like magic is so far below physical attackers, it's almost not funny. Nina's good thing is attacking mobs. Most of her spells are AoE skills, but really, like, given the way the ability system works, you can give any character any move. Because you can do that, what makes Ryu impossible to not just do what Nina's doing? What's stopping Momo from doing what Nina's doing? And I'll talk about Momo right now, because Momo is basically what Ryu is, just a weaker stat base. But she is an insane physical attacker and a good damage dealer. So Nina ends up becoming kind of a waste of space, which is not helped by a lot of the problems that she suffers in this game. She's kind of a damsel in distress, and I know that's her entire character, but she puts herself in situations that are really dumb. I talked about Baleo and Sunder, these hired hitmen, these goat men, those looking dudes, horsemen looking guys. They kick my ass, right? They took Ryu, Ray, and Tipo and just beat the shit out of them. And then they conned Ryu and captured him, and Nina's gonna be like, do I save the little boy, or do I unlock the cells to these wanted criminals who were part of a mob? Now, yeah, she was like 8 or 10 or whatever, but how can you be that stupid? You were there when he was in the cage. You were there when they were kicking the cage. Why? Oh, why did you release them? And then she does other stupid things, like always forcing herself in the front of the party. It's an in-game mechanic. She always gets put in the front of the party when I don't want her to. She gets a storyline thing in the game where midway into the childhood storyline, you're supposed to help this book nerd fall in love with his childhood sweetheart, but this big Bluto-looking guy is flexing and just doing all that crap. So you have to spend like 4 to 5 in-game days fighting and training this guy. Why? Because the plot demanded it. And who's the one that decided to do this? Nina. Why do we care? Why do we care? Because they were nice to them, they said, hey, you can go do the thing you want to do. But out of character, I think, why are you bothering to help these people you don't know fall for this person that may or may not like each other? You're meddling in an affair that we have nothing to do with, because we've got nothing better to do. So let's just have people fall in love. It's a stupid minigame, and it's dumb. So Nina's responsible for that mess. And it's like, by the time she becomes an adult where she's less problematic, then the Desert of Death happens. And oh boy, the Desert of Death. We go 7 or 8 days walking in a fucking desert. Who's the one who gets heat stroke? Nina. I haven't even been using her in a party. Nina. She gets fucking heat stroke. So, our plan is to save her life out of the goodness of our hearts. So, she's already got so many strikes against her for so many different reasons, and I'm just sick of it. I like Nina in Breath of Fire 2. I like Nina in Breath of Fire 4. 1 and 5, it's fine. But 3, Nina is on the short list of people that I just hate. Call it a shit list, if you will. My God, she's not the worst, but she is up there. And it's because so many things work against her, or the game and the story and the writers basically shoehorn everything to make her important. When at the end of the day, her story is, I'm a princess, but I don't want to be. She's Marl from Chrono Trigger with none of the charm and none of the in-battle skill. If she was a healer, cool. That would have worked. It served her well in 4. But no, They basically made a magic system that is worse than physical attacks, and they made a character who cannot do anything except attacking or debuffing. But there are people in the party who do it better than she does. So, as a main character and a mainstay of the franchise, she falls flat. I talked about Momo before. Momo is Nina, but better. She can fight with a fucking bazooka. She can do magic damage. Her whole thing is she's in this giant fuck off tower just minding her own business, but she's a scientist, she's an engineer, she can blow stuff up with a bazooka. Did I mention the bazooka? Because it's amazing. You get her third in the party after the Baleo and Sunder thing happens. And the main problem with Nina is that she just can't do anything that Momo can't do. Momo's a great magic user. Momo can take a punch. Momo can beat the shit out of dudes with her bazooka. If you get rid of her accuracy problem with her bazooka, she has no weaknesses. She's a lesser Ryu, pretty much. And it's unfair. So why would you ever use Mina when Momo's there? It's like in Super Mario RPG, you have Peach, Mallow, blah, 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 Peach every single time. It's just unfair. So Momo's whole drive as an engineer is to work on machines and find out where they came from. There was a concept known as the Techno Age, where for some reason a lot of different technologies and debris and whatever is washed ashore in this world, this fantasy world, typical medieval fantasy, whatever. But this high-end technology exists, and Momo wants to know why. So she joins the party and never leaves. That's the extent of it. She doesn't really learn much. She doesn't change much. She gets a couple of storyline things here and there. She gets a dungeon or two to her name, but she doesn't get much, which is fair, I suppose. It's not a whole bunch wrong with her. It's just Nina and Momo get shortchanged. But speaking of that, there is a character known as Peiko, which is weird because Peiko is an onion. I will explain that. Peiko is a mutant onion from the plant that Momo is trying to help, fix or whatever. And they beat the shit out of the mutant, and he just lobs this onion-looking thing that doesn't speak our language. And we just take him. He's a mascot character. He doesn't do anything, doesn't say anything, at least nothing that's in English. And his weird thing is that he's actually really good in battle. His fun thing in battle is he can use like fire and ice breaths. He can use like status effects to the enemy party. But the cool thing with him is that if you buff his defense and put him in the front of the party, he will counter everything or nearly every move. And I'll talk to that a little bit more when I do the minutia about the battle system. But Peiko is an interesting option in battle because he has that defensive capability. And the better part is, while he's soaking up damage, every turn he can regenerate a little bit. It's not a lot, but he's soaking up a ton of damage because of high defense and then wrecking party shit because of attacks that he just decides he wants to do. So that's his thing. Again, in story, not a whole lot, unfortunately, but there's only so much that you can do with a character like that. Now, there is something you can do more with him, but suffice to say, he's just there. Nina, Momo, Peiko, they're just there, unfortunately. Which brings us to Gar. And Gar is the character I mentioned before. His motivation is really the driving force of this game. So unlike Nina, who usually gets the main character slot in Breath of Fire other than Ryu, Gar is the one giving the party everything to go on. When he joins, he stops them from Baleo and Sunder. he decides, hey, I'm going to take you to Angel Tower just so I can kick Ryu's ass and kill him. Because God told me it was a good idea. So his God has imbued him and his race, known as the Urkin, with the power of the Guardian. And they are big, beefy fucking dudes. They're basically like half dragon, sort of, like just big, burly, fucking winged guys. They're not technically dragons, but they sure look like it. But man, he is a powerful guy. In battle, he stabs. He stabs, and he stabs. He is Bowser in Breath of Fire. That is all you need to know. He has a spear, he stabs. If you have him do anything else, good fucking luck. He has no AP, he has no agility. His job is to stab, and he stabs really fucking well. So if you use him, he's good at defense and he's good at attack because he's not going to do anything else. But that's fine, because in-game, his character is super strong. In the adult timeline, he finds Ryu and then asks him for forgiveness because, well, I tried to stab you and kill you and all that. Will you ever forgive me? So he does, and then he ends up taking you back to Angel Tower, and that's where everything starts to come together. Gar is the main driving force in the game. It's kind of amazing that Nina and Momo and Peiko just don't get anything, and then here's Gar who gets everything. Everything's tied to Ryu as a main character, but the real meat of the story is Gar. And Gar is the one who will guide you to everything and give you what you need and give you the information that you have to do. I spoke about Ray and Tipo, and let's get back to that. We'll talk about Tipo first. Tipo is... think of Ryu, but more magically inclined. You don't use him all that much, which is unfortunate, because it's like 2 missions. Tipo's kind of the big brother, but he's also kind of a punk kid. And it's unfortunate because there's more to Tipo that the game doesn't really tell you. They hint at it a little bit, but they don't really get much. It's because they don't have time to do that. They give you the Baleo and Sunder thing, and then it ends up kind of backfiring on Tipo, because he's the one that's trying to poke the bear and say, why don't we go steal this thing? Why don't we go fight this thing? Let us rob this guy. As opposed to Ray, who's a little older. Ray is what's known as a Warren, a cat-like person. So Tabaxis in D&D, basically. Cat-like person. Cat-like humanoid. You've seen them in a couple of different Breath of Fire games. I think every one of them, I know 2, 3, and 4 specifically have Warren cat-like characters in the party. And Ray is very agile, very powerful, and he has the hidden ability of the Were-Tiger. So he can do the same wild-shaping thing that Ryu does, but his techniques are a bit awkward because he can only attack. But he hits hard. If you thought Gar hit hard, no. Ray in Were-Tiger form hits so fucking hard. And he's so fast, he often goes before the enemies do, and he often gets extra turns out of it. So he's a very, very good secondary attacker to work in with the party if you need it. The problem with that is that he is berserk most of the time. So you have to take into account him going berserk and kicking the shit out of you with the move known as Influence. It's a little tricky to get, but it's an early game skill that Ryu or someone can use and say, hey, kill that thing. And Ryu or Ray goes, yes, sir, and just does. And he will continually murder the shit out of whatever you told him to hit until they die or he dies. Now, unlike Ryu, who gets the second health bar, Ray does not. So those are those balancing acts. Because Ray is purely attack based. There's no reason to be versatile. He's there to fight. In his normal form, he can do some lightning attacks, he can do some stealing, he can do some other things, but really his job is to stab. So Gar and Ray and Momo stab. Momo is a little more magically inclined, though, so you can change it up and do a lot of different things. So you have 6 characters, well, 5, really, because Nina is kind of bleh. But you have 6 characters doing what they can do. And Ray joins up in the adult timeline, beaten, broken, scarred, and bloodied. And he is vengeful. He does not know that Baleon Sunder got wrecked by Ryu, Gar, Nina, Momo, and the like. So he's on a rampage. He takes it all out on Sin City and Mikba, who is the leader of Baleon Sunder, and he ends up killing Mikba, only to find out that his real prey, well, they got axed before he even found them. And then he's just kind of unsure of himself. He doesn't know what he wants. He doesn't know why these mobsters came and wrecked his life. All he wanted was to have friendships and, be a brotherhood with his orphan friends. Instead, he was so vengeful and so taken aback that he knows nothing else but fighting. He just wants to find out why Gar's god chose to do that, or let it happen. And those are your main characters. Now, I'll get into the other stuff later in the plot, but I do want to veer into the battle system now that I'm talking about it, because I talked about before that magic is kind of a weak situation. Not for lack of trying. The way the battle system works is you have separate skills. You have an attack button, you have an item button, you have guarding, examining an enemy to try and learn an ability, which would go into your magic slots, or you can use, let's see, items, yeah, then that. You can also do like an auto battle feature. You can also run away. So it's pretty simple. Where it gets funny is the ability system, where if you find an enemy's skill that you like, which sometimes comes to trial and error, you just have to look it up, but you spend a turn using a character that you want to learn the skill, and they will take that turn. Hopefully that person gets to use it. It's kind of like blue magic in Final Fantasy VII, or Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy V, Final Fantasy VI, that kind of thing. They have to get used against you. And if they're used against you, you have a chance of learning that ability. Now, the person who examined it is the one who learns it, but you can change an ability around to give it to a person that you would prefer. So if you want Momo to learn Earthquake or Lava Burst instead of, Shadow Walk, which is an attack skill, I mean, she can do both. But for reference, you want to take the attackers to do the attack stuff. You want the magic users to do the magic stuff. So you can actually use what is known as skill ink in a tent and give yourself that ability. And you can change it around. Those are versatile abilities that you can change in and of themselves. You also have more versatility in lieu of the dragon system, the gene system that I talked about before. So you can have an elemental edge. You can turn into a small dragon, a big dragon, a fighty dragon, a magic dragon. I just realized the pun I made there. No, you cannot. No, you cannot do that, sadly. Though I think a couple of the skills from the poison mechanic might look like it. But anyway, Ryu has the versatility of the dragon genes. So you have the ability system, you have the dragon genes. What you also have is the master system. And this is, I think, Breath of Fire 3's claim to fame more than anything else, is introducing the master system. Throughout the game, there are about 10 to 15 different masters. And these are people and NPCs that have different prerequisites. You can get one that wants you to find items. You have one that wants you to do the fishing minigame. You got one that's like, hey, help the whatever, do the whatever thing in this storyline, then I will join you and whatever. The cool thing about them is they not only have their specific skills that they learn, but they have a specific stat base. So they have incremental addition and subtraction every level up. So if you want a magic user to stay a magic user, you use the magic-based master, but they might wreck their defense or wreck their HP count, but they'll have a lot more AP and a lot more intelligence to use. If you want to have a defensive person, well, use the defensive guy, but his agility might be tanked, or like your defense might improve, but your HP might go down or whatever. So your stat base is constantly in flux because you can always change what master you want. My method, my approach tends to be pick a master, sometimes at random because I've played this game quite a bit. So I've run the gamut of Ryu being a damage dealer, a magic user, a support caster, what have you. I find that Ryu works best as a physical attacker. That being said, his dragon forms are kind of limited because they have a limited HP or AP pool to run from if you go the attack route. But do keep in mind that it's better to have higher stats than your HP and AP. Because if you build your characters wrong or you build them in a certain way and you're stuck in a certain situation, you're getting in trouble. I ran Ryu as a support mage, and when he was in a one-on-one situation, he couldn't really do a lot of damage to an enemy, even with magic. Magic is just not as good. Physical damage does way more damage for less cost. And that's why Nina gets shortchanged, because she doesn't have the HP or the damage output that Momo has with a fucking gun. So let that sink in as well if you ever play it. But those are kind of the interesting things with the battle system. As far as the game goes, you have your normal quests. You don't really have a lot of side quests. You have things you can do here and there, but they're not really side quests. What this game does instead is a lot of minigames. And some of them are fun, some of them are crap. And let's get the shitty ones out of the way first, because I like to do the negatives first. There's a mandatory side quest in the adult timeline that is called the Shishu quest. This dork in a harbor town doesn't want to eat fish no more, but that's all he gets to eat because he's in a fucking harbor town. So their job is to go to his hometown and learn how to cook shisu, which is sushi. Amazing. So you get the items from there, and a couple places are easy. You bonk your head on a tree, you get an item. You go fight this thing, and you swipe a sword on a tree, you get this item. But there's a part of the side quest that's really stupid. I saw a streamer do this once, his first time, and I hated him for it, because I couldn't do it to save my fucking life. And it's the Vinegar side quest. There's this coffee shop in Windia, which is about, midway into the child storyline. They put like this goddamn rhythm game associated with grabbing vinegar. And the idea is you have a bucket and you're supposed to fill it with water, but you're supposed to like time it and remember how many times you hit the button on the way down. You fill it up, and then you fiddle with the buttons. I really want to know why the streamer got it on the first try, because I don't fucking know how he did it. Every time I do it, I mess up. It's like the Final Fantasy VII thing where you try to hit the buttons in the reactor at the same time, and it takes like 10 tries to do it. It takes me 10 fucking tries to get vinegar, or get water to get vinegar twice or 3 times. And then you give the guy his food, and then you get to do a stupid minigame where you have to ride a ship in these like narrow corridors and a time limit, and you gotta like get to this dork's house to tell you how to proceed to the other side quest for like you get 25 seconds to do a thing that takes 22 or 23. So you have like no time but get it perfect. And the fucking boat overheats, and it's just stupid. So this game isn't perfect. And yeah, the storyline with Nina and the dork nerd who's leveling up, the way that works is you have to go into battle with this guy, and you are letting him hit you, or you're hitting him, and his stats will improve if you hit him, if he defends and you hit him, if he does damage, if you do a shit ton of damage. But the problem is you don't know what a good threshold is to get to the stat base that you need to beat Bluto. His name is Zig, but I call him Bluto. So Bluto will just punch his face in every fucking turn, and you gotta wait like 4 in-game days to do this stupid. So I'm angry thinking about those side quests. And we haven't even gotten to the Desert of Death yet. So, the Desert of Death. It took me an hour. And it sucks. The concept is awesome. You're in this barren wasteland. There is nothing but enemies. There's sand. And there's fucking heat everywhere. So you walk. And you walk. And you walk. And then you gotta stop and drink some water. And you keep walking. The concept is you have to follow the stars. You follow a certain star one day, and then you turn to face a different star, or at least offset a different direction. And then a few days later, in-game days, you switch it. So you spend 7 days. An hour. It took me an hour. And this was with limited fights. You can get into fights and fight some of the enemies in there. And they're not hard, but it's monotonous. And again, it's mandatory. The idea that this is the last real dungeon before the final dungeon, sure. It's an interesting idea, but terrible execution. And again, Nina gets heat stroke. Just cuz. It's an in-storyline bullshit reason that she just gets heat stroke. Nobody else did. But I guess Nina was too important to not have heat strokes. I bet you like losing your camel. I bet that's great. You can't go back. You can't lose your camel, but you can't lose Nina either. No, I'd rather have the camel. So, the Desert of Death also sucks. But you're wondering, is there anything good in this game as far as side quests go? The answer is yes. And it's the fishing. The fishing in this game is great. I know that there's been fishing minigames in Ys 8. There's been fishing minigames in Nier and Final Fantasy 15 and so many other games. But for my money, Breath of Fire 3 has the best. The reason for that is they have like 20 to 30 different types of fish. And you have different rods that you can get throughout the game that have better strengths and weaknesses. And better lures, and you can buy or you can find lures wandering around, but the items can be used to trade in for better items than what you currently have on offer. Or you can use the fish that you catch in battle for recovery of HP or AP or attack damage or debuffs or buffs. It's really an just engaging minigame because you have to line up your shot with the right lure and the right rod. Say that too many times. Right rod. Yes. But once you get the bite, then the second part of the minigame happens. So you spend a little bit of time trying to find the right fish that you're looking for while dodging some of the weaker ones. And even some of the harder ones, you can hardly find them. So the harder ones are very difficult because they have shit tons of health in the minigame. And they're usually way further out than the range of the rod. So you're fighting against harder fish with less error that are trying to do more damage to your rod and break the lure. But when you get them, it's this cathartic feeling. And you can get anything from a piranha to a jellyfish to a trout, spearfish, anglerfish. You can catch a motherfucking whale. You can catch a whale in the outskirts of the final area. A whale. And the best part of the whale is he can either get the best item for Ryu, or the best weapon or best armor for Ryu, or you can use it as a full heal for your party. And it's a really good thing. So you have this in-game, and the best part is, like, not only are you getting special items from all the fishing that you do, you can get the best items in the game from fishing, or you can find them in the Desert of Death, your choice. I would rather fish. Or you can use your skill points to get a master. Now, again, stats are better than HP, but the master can give you a couple of skills. He can raise your HP and your AP if you're in a pinch. So fishing gives you a lot of different things that you can do. And I played Breath of Fire again. As much as I love the story, I love the fishing minigame in this. It's an isometric fishing minigame, but something is so good about it. There's so much to like about it. And I always come back to play it or come back to watch it because the minigame is so fun. There's also in the adult storyline, well, the childhood storyline starts you off. I told you before about the book nerd saving you or saving his girlfriend, whatever, from Zig. That opens up what's known as the lighthouse. It is defended by some fairies. The fairies are trying to stop this fuck off dolphin or something from eating them. This sucks. So you don't think about it or whatever, and then you become an adult, and the fairies are like, you stupid fucking dummy! Why did you leave us there for 5 or 10 years? Don't you know we're fucking stupid? And then you open up the fairy village. The fairy village allows you to get a super cheap inn, or you get some item shops, or you get a music sound test. You get so many different options. You can actually have them copy a specific item. They have a gift shop. You can use them to explore items. You can have a casino to get some other items or money out of it. So the Fairy Village is a big versatile minigame in and of itself. So while a lot of the mandatory minigames are stupid, a lot of the side content that is actually optional in most cases is part of the best parts of Breath of Fire. And that's why I'm not totally against all the side questing, because it breaks up the chain of momentum. I mean, the game is fine, but without the Fairy Village, without the fishing minigame, and without, trying these minigames, it wouldn't be as fun as it is. So, yeah, while a lot of the minigames and mandatory side quests are dumb, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt, because at the end of the day, it worked out to a better ratio than not. So, you get through the adult storyline. You've reached past the Desert of Death. And then you find your way into a place known as Miria Station. And you might be wondering what Miria is. Well, Miria is a character from Breath of Fire 1 redone as to be the villain and final boss of Breath of Fire 3. The reason why she is so dangerous is that she is the one who commanded Gar and the Guardians to ruin the Brood and ruin them into hiding in the outskirts of the Desert of Death. So they gave up their powers in hoping that someone would come along, someone like Ryu would come along and stop her. So Ryu finds his home, or at least his hometown, and everyone is hoping and praying to have this journey see its end. He is given the final keys, the final genes that give him insane power, the power that the goddess feared. And one of the characters early on, known as Dace, a high-level wizard Naga lady, so big old snake lady, one of the masters you receive, will guide you to your god. She knows this person personally and knows why Gar's unshaken, unimaginable faith, this unbridled faith in his god, is misguided. Because she's caught in the middle of this. She's trying to warn the war against the war. She wants the Brood to live in harmony with the Guardians or whatever. She questions why the gods want them to destroy the Brood. It's this unshaken fear, this unfathomable fear that Gar has of the Brood and its power, but it's given by God and by Miria. So you fight your way into Miria Station. You fight your way through a couple of boss fights and a couple of dangerous areas, and you work your way into an interesting little holograph or holodeck room. It's an artificially created forest or paradise, if you will. It's like Eden, like the Garden of Eden, if it was in a walled room in an insane asylum or something. Waiting there and guarding the path to Miria is none other than Tipo himself. And Ray is shaken by this and doesn't know why Tipo's there. And then the revelation hits that, well, he is Brood too. He doesn't want to do it. but he knows he has no choice. And it's not as if he was being brainwashed. And here is where the interesting thing comes to play. Tipo keeps trying to say that he should look into his friend's eyes, and Ryu should understand that Miria is not trying to be this evil person. She's not trying to destroy the world or destroy the brood, but she really has been driven into a corner. But she's not doing it out of malice. She's doing it out of fear. And Tipo, this distraught kid who was beaten to hell by these mobsters in his youth, was left to fend for himself. He had no friends, he had no family, he had no mother figure. So then this mother figure comes to him and says, "You have to stop what you're doing. I know who you are, and I can tell you who you are, but I need you to stop." And this is all stuff you can infer from the way he acts. Miria herself does not appear until the end. The unfortunate thing is that the boss that you have to face before you get to Miria is Tipo himself. And as great as this game is, it doesn't really hit you until that moment of knowing that this friend that you made, this person who was your brother of sorts, Ray's brother, this person he thought he was dead just 10 minutes ago, is lying dead on the ground because you had to kill him. Because he was guarding the way to Miria out of fear. All of his efforts to rejoin his family, just to stop this, didn't happen. Ray is left shaken and crying. Ryu is a dopey silent protagonist, so what can you do? But still, the fact that this game, that to this point has had hits and misses here and there, but saved its literal gut punch until 95% of the way through the game, says, this friend I had you make early in the game, this person that you thought was dead, is alive. But you want to know how you beat this game? You have to kill him yourself. And only then can you end this game, because only then could you go into Miria's chamber and find out why. And this, again, adds to why Breath of Fire 3 is so good. Miria herself is not some malevolent goddess. In the first game, she was noted as a trickster goddess and a fury. And she is very powerful, but she chooses not to use a lot of those powers. Her powers really extend to terraforming, shape-shifting, teleportation, and just an ungodly skill set in battle. But what strikes me with Miria is that throughout the talk with Ryu's family, or Ryu's hometown, it is reiterated over and over that Miria is fearful, but she's not hateful. She's not vengeful. She's not angry with them. She is afraid. And that fear is what has driven her to basically telling Dace, her only sister, I'm going to kill all of these people. I am going to commit genocide of an entire race because I think they could be this destructive force. And knowing what Ryu is, she's right. If Ryu wanted to, he could Thanos snap in an instant and everything would be burned to ash. So she doesn't even want that to happen. Her whole motivation is fear. Not malice, not contempt, just fear. This unshakable, unbridled fear of this thing, and that she knows full well could be a threat to the world. So she gates off the world. She terraforms half the world into this cloying mess of desert of death, because she saw firsthand what happens when humans squabble. They're stupid and don't survive the desert. But she also knows that she has the human race to contend with alongside the brood and other races too. So she basically cordons off the entire world and says, I need humanity to live here. I will protect it because this gigantic sea and this gigantic desert are going to be pushed back. They are not going to be harmed at all. She is saving the entire world in this half of the world because everywhere else, there's a bunch of shit. There's a bunch of steel and sand and people that really have no emotional connections. There's just nothing. It's just, here are people sending a lot of crap over to the other side of the world so people can live in comfort. And therein lies the key to it. Much like Shin Megami Tensei would say, do you want to live in order? Well, you'd be in subjugation in this little box. Or do you want free will? JRPGs tend to have this, like, religion is bad, and people are evil, and gods are evil, and it's not that simple in this game. I fully understand why Miria would say, the desert is going to kill you if I don't stop it. The brood will destroy people out of discontent, and they have the power to do so. So I will use my power to strip them of theirs. She goes too far, and she makes an enemy out of the wrong people, including her sister. But it's not as if Miria herself is this evil entity bent on destroying the world. It's misguided. But at the same time, a misguided villain is something magical, in a way. Because you fully understand why they're doing what they're doing. This isn't a Kefka who's just trying to burn everything just for the sake of it. Or just doing it for the funsies. This isn't even like Sephiroth, who's trying to get ultimate power, but stepping on everybody's life and destroying others to do so. Miria already has the power, but she's not an unlimited, omnipotent god. It's just that she has certain skill set that allows her to manipulate the world in such a fashion that she can protect it. And she is a protector god. The problem is that there are other godlike beings that think that she is being misguided and mistreating the world and not living in free will. So Ryu has a choice. He can live in a box like Tipo did, and that's the bad ending, or you can fight Miria. And let me tell you, Miria is not to be trifled with. She can use the best skills in the game, and she can use some dangerous spells in the game. I managed to survive in a 40-minute boss fight at the tail end. But it's not easy. And different builds are going to be different things. But at the end of the day, Breath of Fire 3 ends with the world having been covered in sand. But the human race and other races are now free to do what they want to. So, in essence, you've stopped a god from siphoning the world, just gating this world off in this little cage. But you may have resigned humanity to a fate that it can't escape from. Now, of course, you have Dace and some other gods that are there to help you. But the question does remain, was it the right decision? Was fighting Miria the right decision? It is in a gameplay sense, because you can't beat the game without destroying Miria, but Miria is a fascinating character because she's not an evil, malevolent, malicious character. She's simply an obstacle, an obstinate, misguided god with the power to shape the world and keep it locked in a cage because she is fearful. Does that excuse her from causing genocide? No. But it is a much more fascinating reason as to why somebody would do such a thing. And at the end of the day, what is Breath of Fire 3? It is a game that has a lot of faults. Whether it comes into weak character motivations for certain characters like Nina or Momo or Peiko, or shitty minigames that are mandatory to proceed, like the Bade storyline with Zig and the Desert of Death and Shisu. But then you have great storyline like Miria, Tipo, Ray, Gar. You have great set pieces. You have good mini games that are just small mini games. You have great grand scale mini games like the fishing mini game and the fairy village. You have an amazing versatile battle system that gives you so many options when you want to replay it and you want to re-experience the story, but you can get to there in a different way because you're constantly changing a party member or you're changing how they would react. You can change anybody to be anything you want to be at any given time. That happened in 1997. This well-to-do but little-known RPG from 1997 gave you more versatility than some games do even today. And at the end of the day, this game is a versatile B-grade RPG. It does a lot of things well. It does some things really poorly, but the things it does well shine so brightly that I always go back and I play it. I always go back and rewatch it, whether it's my own playthrough or I watch somebody else's. I want to re-experience everything this had to offer. A lot of people like 2. A lot more people like 4. And there's always that back and forth. Is 3 the better one? Is 4 the better one? I have recently played Breath of Fire 4, and I just... something about it, despite the gameplay help, the gameplay improvements, the story and the setting and just the way you get around is a little bit too obtuse for me. There's something simple and something fun and something refreshing about how simple and yet pure Breath of Fire 3 as a game and an experience is. So whether you watch it on a YouTube playthrough or you play it for yourself, you can dig out a PS1 and you can play it. I mean, that's what I did. I dug out my old PS3 so that I could play a PS1 copy. I had to buy 2 or 3 separate copies of Breath of Fire 3. Because that's one of the only ways to do it. You can play it on PSP as well. But I was never antagonistic towards Breath of Fire 3. It was an experience that I always enjoyed. And it's been 25 years since it came out. And it is a crime that this franchise didn't get it to keep going on like Final Fantasy did, like Persona did, like others did, like Tales. This is right up there with some of the better ones in those franchises. And it's a crying shame that Capcom hasn't gotten another one since. But who knows? We may get a Breath of Fire 7 someday. We may get a proper Breath of Fire 6 that isn't a mobile game. And if it comes in my lifetime, I will be a happy person because I have fond memories of this franchise and it sure as hell deserves a lot of this praise. But that's going to do it for me. And I tried it a little differently this week because, again, this is a game I know so well. Off the top of my head, I knew everything I wanted to say and how I wanted to say it. I don't know how it came across. Hopefully people can like, share, and subscribe and just comment. Please let me know like what I can do if you'd prefer this more like freeform, like, oh my god, spitting fire and venom and stuff, or if you'd like that more subdued analytical perspective that I was doing in a lot of other ones. Let me know which style would fit best for me, which style works better. I don't know. This was a change for me. This is a different style of presenting the material, and hopefully, maybe it will what's the word? Respond to it. Maybe you will respond to it. There's a word for that. I'm forget it. I forgot the word I was looking for. I'll know it when I get done with it and whatever. But anyway, I'm not gonna edit it. Fuck it. We're at the end here. Anyway, that'll do it for me. But next week we will do RWBY seasons 1 through 3 or volumes 1 through 3. RWBY is an interesting take. There's going to be a lot to get through, and it's probably going to be another podcast like this where I have a lot of stuff I got to get through and a lot of different things I'm going to want to talk about because there's so many characters, so many different things, so many different backstories, so many different machinations, and so many different little foreshadowing events that they're building in volumes 1 and 3. that will take you into volumes 4 and 5, and then into 7 or 6 through 8, and into volume 9, which is going to come out very soon. So next week, and then 2 weeks after that, and then 2 weeks after that, we're going to focus on RWBY. We're going to do seasons 1 through 3, seasons 4 and 5, and then 6 through 8, because they fit in a specific bubble, in a storyline perspective. In between those episodes, I just finished up Shin Megami Tensei 5. So we'll focus on Shin Megami Tensei 5 and thoughts about that. Hopefully, I'll have some ideas of what I'm going to do after those. But you got a lot of RWBY, and we got Shin Megami Tensei 5 coming up. But that's for next week. But for now, that's enough for me. Citizen Strife, signing off.